Looking forward to bringing more adventures back to you and our devoted fans.
Excellent.
You bet.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's bring out this morning's guest.
Yes.
From the county of Rock, in the city of Laverne, we'd like to welcome Terrie Gulden.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Welcome, Terrie. It's such a pleasure to have you here.
Yes.
My pleasure.
I understand that you're with an organization called Honor Flight. What is that?
Honor Flight is a national program that covers the entire country. And our sole goal is to bring World War II veterans to Washington, D.C. to see the memorial that was built and dedicated in 2004. There are probably 160 or 70 flight hubs, which we are one in Laverne, Minnesota, representing Southwest Minnesota.
Really?
It's an organization that we put together, our hub in probably late 2009. In November, we formed the hub mostly to bring about 14 to 15, maybe 16 veterans in Rock County who had not been able to see the memorial and weren't sure that they were going to get to for a variety of reasons. April 30th, we flew our first 110 veterans to Washington, D.C.
That's outstanding.
Nice.
And
That's
we
outstanding.
have our second flight scheduled and planned for October 1, so we'll be taking another 110.
That's
So
great.
It's awesome.
Wonderful, wonderful. So it began, can you tell us a little bit how the organization began?
Certainly.
What,
And, you
what
know, it's really an
prompted it?
interesting story. In 2004, when the memorial was built and dedicated, we had already lost 65% of the World War II veterans in this
really?
country.
I didn't realize that.
It is amazing. In 2005, a retired Air Force captain, I think it was, a 27-year veteran, was hired by the Department of Veteran Affairs to run a small clinic in Springfield, Ohio.
Okay.
While he was attending to his clients, he would ask these gentlemen or ladies if they thought that they would ever have a chance to see the memorial, and most of the responses were, well, I hope so. I think so, if somebody can take me. And it would go on like this, and the next year he asked, did you ever have a chance to see your memorial? And he said, the first guy that he asked that question to said, no, I wasn't able to. And asked why, and he says, well, I just couldn't get there. My family couldn't afford to take me. And he was also a pilot. He has a private pilot's license. And he said, could I take you? Would you go if I would take you? And he said the guy broke down and cried.
Oh, my.
And that started it. He took the gentleman to Washington, D.C., took care of him for a day, flew him there at no cost to him.
Oh, that's
great. Those are the two premises of Honor Flight. First, there's no cost to the veteran, and you have to take care of them while they are there. Well, he knew that he had something going on, so he invited pilots from his association to also fly with him. And they took 12 airplanes and took
my goodness.
one to two in each one of them and flew to Washington, D.C., and that was the first inaugural flight. And by the end, that was in May of 2005, and by August, the demand was so great that they started using commercial airlines. Last year, we took somewhere between 35 and 37,000 veterans to Washington, D.C. across the country. This year, it probably doubled.
Goodness.
Wow. Now that brings me to the obvious question.
Sure.
This costs
something.
I mean, major expenses. How much does it cost, and how are you doing your fundraising?
Oh, it costs somewhere around, I'm going to give an approximate number because it can vary a little bit on each flight, depending on the charter flight that you can find at the time. Approximately $125,000 to make one trip.
My goodness.
The trip is free to the veterans.
True.
So that puts a burden on us to raise a lot of money. We raise the money through lots and lots of fundraisers.
Sure.
We have corporate sponsorships that we develop, a $3,000, a $5,000, and a $10,000 sponsorship. We have a lot of bake sales. We have a lot of steak dinners.
Great.
We had a bunch of people in Nobles County jump in a 10-foot square hole in the middle of January in the Lake Okabena this last winter and raised over $40,000 that day. But just a couple of weeks ago, they had a fundraiser in Worthington, and they had some people that volunteered to be tasered by the local law enforcement.
To raise money?
And to raise monies.
I think I'd jump in the lake. What do you think?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a variety of things.
Yes.
We started out selling a little button, $5 donation for a button. and we've raised a fair amount of money just selling buttons, but it also allowed us to be recognized. Our hub supports 4 counties. We had 4 counties that were involved in raising the money, doing the marketing, and now we've actually expanded our second flight. If you were to draw a line from the corner of Minnesota where Rock County is, and go to Fairmont, because we have Fairmont veterans that are traveling with us on our first flight and our second flight, and then draw a line all the way up to the northwest part of the state where Wheaton, Minnesota is. We're covering all of that area.
Now, how does a veteran, how do they apply, or how do they become involved on the honor flight?
It's very simple. They have to fill out an application and send it to us. The application can be found on our website, which we'll show, lavernechamber.com. There's a link on there to the honor flight, and the veterans application is there, and also for those that want to go along as a guardian.
That's what I was going to ask. How does a guardian?
There's an application for the guardian. They fill out the information. We match up. Some guardians want to go with a parent or a grandparent. Likewise, the parent or grandparent, like a son or grandparent. Guardians, there is a donation that we ask them to make to fly with us. It's part of our fundraising. It's $800 for a guardian to fly with us. Most of them that fly say it was the best thing I ever did. It's the best $800 I've ever spent.
Do they also stay with the veterans at the hotel, or how does that work?
Sometimes they do. It depends on if they've requested to be with one. Then they'll probably be roomed together. Could it be dad and a son, or a mother and a daughter?
This is just an outstanding. I think it's probably one of the greatest things that we can do to honor what I consider to be the greatest generation that this country has ever had.
Well,
and I think it's just
happen to agree
wonderful.
with you.
I think it's just wonderful.
Well, thank you, and we are very grateful. And what I see when these veterans come back home again, I mean, and the 2 days that they spend there, they've changed.
They're just elated. I have to believe that they were there. And
most veterans are very quiet. That generation didn't talk about
they didn't.
war. They came home and they built a society and communities for us to live in. When they get to Washington, D.C., most of them will tell you, I can't talk about this. And they're very, very quiet. But by the second day, on Saturday morning when we take them to the World War II Memorial, something happens. And all of a sudden they are with people that understand where they've been, what they've been living with for 60 years, and they start to talk, and they start sharing. And I have said for months now that this is a huge healing process
it is.
For these folks.
Do many of these veterans meet up with people that they may have served with?
They do.
That they didn't otherwise know that?
They do.
Do you know what
I know
because
exactly
I got to believe that there
saying.
are groups that come in from different hubs during the same period of time, correct?
That were in the same units?
But I mean, you might have different hubs coming into Washington, D.C. at the same time?
We had 9.
Okay, so
9
you see what I'm
hubs from
saying.
across the country. Can I tell you one story?
Please, absolutely, yes.
There are actually 2 little stories. One is, we were sitting at the Iwo Jima Memorial, the Marine Corps Memorial. So it was a very warm day in April, and we were sitting, we had about 4 or 5 wheelchairs with veterans, and we were standing just watching the memorial, and 3 women came up to us. One was probably my age, one was maybe 30, and one was probably a teenager, or young, maybe middle schooler. And the 30-year-old girl came up and started talking to the veterans and said, "Are any of you Dutch?" And then they thought it was a joke, and it wasn't a joke. She said, "Well, I just want to tell you that because of you, because of what you did in liberating the prisoners," she says, "I'm here alive today. I'm here today to thank you for that because you saved my grandparent. I am here today to thank you." And we saw the same thing. We do a mail call with our veterans. We have schools in our areas write letters. The elementary, middle school kids, some high school, they write letters because that was a big deal in World War II to receive mail.
Absolutely, yes.
So we have a mail call, and there was a letter from a little Jewish boy that said exactly the same thing, and it just tears at your heart.
Absolutely.
But on Friday night, we have a wonderful banquet. We sit them all down to white tablecloth
that's
banquet at the
so
Westin Hotel,
Nice.
and we have military color guards come in, and we have lots of military involvement.
That's outstanding. When is your next flight scheduled?
October 1.
October 1.
We leave on early Friday morning, October 1, and we are returning probably 10:30 Saturday evening.
And how many more flights are you anticipating this year?
That will be the last one this
For
year.
this year?
This
For
year.
this year.
And
But
then-
we fully anticipate that we will have one in the spring, probably in April like we did this year in April.
Okay.
And I'm guessing, we are kind of thinking because of the application flow, we might be getting to the end of our little geographic area.
Well, I am very impressed, and I wish you the ultimate success with this.
Well, thank you very
And
much.
hopefully every veteran that's still alive will have an opportunity to participate in this.
I sure hope so too. That's
Absolutely.
our goal too, and our wish is there.
One question. For those that might want to donate,
If there's anyone watching that would like to make a donation, you can send a check to the Laverne Chamber, just right on their honor flight, Southwest
Honor flight.
Minnesota.
well, we want to thank you, Terrie, for joining us today.
It's my pleasure.
And we wish you the most success, and we again thank the veterans for what they've done for our country.
Absolutely.
And hope they thoroughly enjoy the trip. So.
And they do. Thank you so much.
Well, and we also want to thank you, our viewers, for joining us today on the Cocklebur Morning Show, where we weed out the big stories from throughout Sweet Swine County and beyond. So until next time, folks, that's all for now. Bye-bye.